Hey friends, it's Charles here, and I want to give my perspective on AEW going into the HBO Max era. To put it out there for you, I have always been a big wrestling fan. Not necessarily a WWE fan because that style really never appealed to me. But when AEW started, they had a lot of guys that I loved watching from the New Japan Pro Wrestling and from Ring of Honor and those smaller companies, and it was like a conglomeration of stuff that I had to search and peck and hunt for on YouTube. And so it was very exciting for me. And I watched faithfully up until a few years ago with the CM Punk controversy. Around that time, in my view, which I'm not saying is definitive, but in my view, it seemed that AEW had become really dependent on the top stars that were bringing in from bigger companies, and they kind of lost track of developing the guys that helped get them there, and it didn't seem as fun for me. And I switched from my regular cable to a couple of streaming services that I liked to save money. I followed AEW via highlights, YouTube, reruns, and I've also kept up with Ring of Honor on and off, and TNA Impact on and off, as well as other independent or smaller companies. And so I have been following wrestling, but not so much all Elite Wrestling's product until now, because, as it goes, one of those streaming services that I have is HBO Max, because while I am a comic book nerd and a wrestling nerd, I am addicted to wildlife documentaries. I am addicted to Sasquatch documentaries. And I love DC Comics, so HBO Max is a must have for me. And starting January 1st, AEW has moved their programming to not only TNT and TBS on cable, but the Max streaming service. They simulcast it live and they have it available for reruns. So, as of last night, AEW started uploading old content up on the Max network starting from 2019, and they have the first year of Dynamite on Max. That was what, New Year's Eve, so January, as of January 1st, they have most of 2024 available on Max and the year 2019. So what I did last night, because the first simulcast was today, I went and I watched the very first episode of Dynamite, which really gave me a unique perspective because back then it was mostly that the bigger names were the homegrown guys that they had signed from New Japan, and then a lot of guys on the show that were just independent wrestlers, independent names. And they really leaned heavy into, the stars of the future. And it was cool seeing guys like MJF well before he was champion, Darby Allin. We had guys like Brandon Cutler before his affiliation with the Young Bucks. And back when, it seemed like his career was going to be going a completely different way. And they featured a lot of guys that just aren't there anymore. And, I thought back to that time, there were a few differences from that first show to when I quit watching to even now. One difference is that back in those days, every show started off with a hot match. You didn't start with promos. You didn't start with guys talking in the camera. It started a lot of times right into a match without even an entrance. And so they really wanted to grab the wrestling fan right from the start in the beginning of AEW. And as I went into tonight's episode, it wasn't too promo heavy, but I would say the first 5 minutes were promos featuring the main event, which was going to be a six-man tag with the Death Riders, that being John Moxley, Claudio, and Willer Yuta, versus Rated FTR, which is Adam Copeland and the tag team of FTR. And There were cool promos. The Death Riders is very cinematic and grim, and the FT rated R, their promo was more something like you would see out of WCW in the early 90s, just kind of right in the backstage area shouting into the camera, which fits FTR's aesthetic as a throwback tag team. And so, not really too much to complain about there. Do I prefer going right into a match? Yes, but the promos were not egregious. They didn't take up too much time. And so that's one difference I noticed, is that they don't start off with just a hot match. They really want to establish storylines, which I think makes sense because when I first started watching, they were a brand new company without a lot of stories going. And so they could just jump right into the matches because they were just doing chapter one. But here you have guys, and they were expecting new viewers, so you want to get guys caught up on what they have going on now. The matches were great as always. I don't want to be derogatory toward one product because there's something for everybody. But in WWE matches, it's about getting the high spots, the signature moves, putting on a big spectacle, and not making anybody look bad unless they are not assigned or pushed talent. But in AEW, they make it seem more like a competitive atmosphere where anybody can win. And so I appreciate that aspect, and that is still held on. They had great matches tonight. They had Julia Hart versus Jamie Hayter, where both ladies came out looking good. And despite Jamie Hayter's experience, Julia Hart won by being devious, cheating behind the ref's back, totally in character for her, so it made sense, and it gave the bigger, stronger, more experienced wrestler a reason to lose and something to fight back for. The whole night started off with a match between Orange Cassidy and Hangman Page, and I loved this match. It was quick. There were lots of reversals, back and forths. It took a whole lot of time, but it felt like they could have wrestled forever and it would have been entertaining. Everything seemed to flow nicely, and you look at Orange Cassidy's character development. When he first started, he was a lower card guy, not taken seriously at all. He was more about comedy. And now he's developed into a big main event player, still holding on to some of those traits that made him popular. The wrestling with his hands in his pocket and, seeming bored of it all. Yet really, really emphasizing that that is a facade and that behind that is a tremendous athlete. And he went toe to toe with Hangman Page. Hangman Page got the clean win in a tightly contested battle and continued to devolve into insanity, attacking after the bell despite getting the win, attacking, what is his name, Christopher Daniels as well. Looks like something may be happening between those two. That was very entertaining. There was a match between the Hurt Syndicate with Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley, and they were up against the Acclaimed, Anthony Bowens and Max Caster, and I really enjoyed that match. In WWE, with Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, I feel was never seen as much more than just a tag team guy, and so he wasn't presented as much more than that, and Bobby Lashley kind of balance between a top guy and a forgotten mid Carter. But when they came out, they were both big. You know that they have that actual wrestling pedigree and skill, and they just whipped ass. Lots of big throws, lots of traditional wrestling. And the story being told there is a rift between Max Caster and Bowens, where Caster is showing off and costing them big opportunities. And Bowens is the serious guy. He wants to put in the work, and he's frustrated by Max Caster's foolishness. And Max Caster tagged himself in an inopportune time. Pissed off Bowens. Bowens left him. Hurt Syndicate now, I believe. Yeah, they got the win in a very fun match. There were a few other matches. I'm just shooting off the top of the head. So, I'm skipping a lot of stuff. One thing I will say that's the difference between now and then, between 2019 and 2024, is that there are considerably more talking segments. But I would prefer more wrestling and less talking. And we get to the main event, and man, I would say they had maybe 10 to 20 minutes, but it didn't matter how much time they had. It was so exciting. They take advantage of the 6-man stipulation with just complete chaos. There is action from everybody. There's the bad guys. They're cheating behind the ref's back. They're taking cheap shots. Their manager, Marina Shafir, she's taking cheap shots. The good guys, they're trying to run interference. They're hyping the crowd up. There was a point in the match where everything kind of broke down and it was a big free-for-all. And the camera, I don't know if they did this intentionally or not, but it was brilliant in my opinion, to where you would cut to a guy, and then out of nowhere, a wrestler would fly in, hitting a move. Like the cameraman didn't even know it was coming. Nobody knew it was coming. It was just bam, and then they cut to another wrestler. Same thing, and you didn't know where it was coming from. You didn't know what was going on. But it all made sense. And the timing between these 6 men was impeccable. And the end was expected. Wheeler Yuta, being the youngest guy in the match, he took the predictable pinfall after a distraction from the outside of the rest of the Death Riders. He got hit with FTR's finisher, the Shatter Machine, and then a spear from Adam Copeland for the 1-2-3, while his teammates were distracted by Jay White, who also has something going on against the Death Riders. Brilliant match. Really sending the show off on a high note of excitement, making you want to see what's going to happen on Collision on Saturday. And so that's my thoughts on AEW currently as compared to 2019 and when I was watching. There were a lot more wrestling tropes that we see in modern shows than there used to be, as far as the long promos and the emphasis on story. But when they get in the ring, the action is top notch from a logical point of view and a technical point of view, and it's exciting. And you have a lot of stuff, everything from high flyers to powerhouses. So if that sounds like something that you would be into and you want to see more of that independent style wrestling with the high spots, the fast action, and a lot of ring work and not too many promos, I would suggest getting Max, checking out AEW. I get the commercial free Max subscription, which is like $16-17. It's good for me. I think you could probably get a regular with commercials for like half that, but it is well worth it when you look at the DC TV shows, the HBO content, the History Channel, the documentaries. It's a good deal, and now they added some of the best professional wrestling in the world. You can't beat it. Anyway, you guys, be easy, enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you next time. Until then, keep watching that wrestling, keep buying them action figures, and keep watching out my channel for more comic book reviews. I am out.